Canto 17. Vibhishan's flight. Soon as his bitter words were said, to Raghu's sons Vibhish a letter 1E47 fled. 927, their eyes the Vánar leaders raised, and on the airborne Rakshas gazed, bright as a thunderbolt, in size like Meru's peak that cleaves the skies. In gorgeous panoply arrayed like Indra's self he stood displayed, and 4 attendants brave and bold shone by their chief in mail and gold. Sugriva then, with dark surmise, bent on their forms his wondering eyes, and thus in hasty words confessed the anxious doubt that moved his breast. Look, ye Vánars, and beware, that giant chief sublime in air with other 4 in bright array comes armed to conquer and to slay. Soon as his warning speech they heard, the Vánar chieftains undeterred seized fragments of the rock and trees, and made reply in words like these: We wait thy word, the order give, and these thy foes shall cease to live. Command us, mighty king, and all lifeless upon the earth shall fall. Meanwhile Vibhish, a letter 1E47, with the 4 stood high above the ocean shore. Sugriva and the chiefs he spied, and raised his mighty voice and cried, From Rav, a letter 1E47, lord of giants, I his brother, named Vibhish, a letter 1E47, fly. From Janisthan he stole the child of Janak by his art beguiled, and in his palace, locked and barred, surrounds her with a Rakshas guard. I bade him, plied with varied lore, his hapless prisoner restore. But he, by fate to ruin sent, no credence to my counsel lent, mad as the fevered wretch who sees and scorns the balm to bring him ease. He scorned the sage advice I gave, he spurned me like a base-born slave. I left my children and my wife, and fly to Raghu's son for life. I pray thee, Vánar chieftain, speed to him who saves in hour of need, and tell him famed in distant lands that suppliant here Vibhish, a letter 1E47 stands. The Rakshas ceased, Sugriva hied to Raghu's noble son and cried, A stranger from the giant host, born o'er the sea, has reached the coast. A secret foe he comes to slay, as owls attack their heedless prey. 'Tis thine, O king, in time of need to watch, to counsel, and to lead, our Vánar legions to dispose, and guard us from our crafty foes. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 from the giant's isle, King Rav, a letter 1E47's brother, comes with guile, and feigning from his king to flee, seeks refuge, Raghu's son, with thee. Arise, O Rama, and prevent by bold attack his dark intent, who comes in friendly guise, prepared to slay thee by his arts ensnared. Thus urged Sugriva, famed for lore of moving words, and spoke no more. Then Rama thus in turn addressed the bold Hanuman and the rest. Chiefs of the Vánar legions, each of you heard Sugriva's speech. What think ye now in time of fear, when peril and distress are near? In every doubt the wise depend for counsel on a faithful friend. They heard his gracious words, and then spake reverent to the Lord of men. O Raghu's son, thou knowest well all things of heaven and earth and hell. 'Tis but thy friendship bids us speak the counsel Rama need not seek. So duteous, brave, and true art thou, heroic, faithful to thy vow. Deep in the scriptures, trained and tried, still in thy friends wilt thou confide. Let each of us in turn impart the secret counsel of his heart, and strive to win his chief's assent, by force of wisest argument. They ceased, and Angad thus began. With jealous eye the stranger scan, not yet with trusting heart receive Vibhish, a letter 1E47, nor his tale believe. These giants wandering far and wide their evil nature falsely hide, and watching with malignant skill assail us when we fear no ill. Well ponder every hope and fear until thy doubtful course be clear, then own his merit or detect his guile, and welcome or reject. Then Sarabha the bold and brave in turn his prudent sentence gave. Yea, Rama, send a skillful spy with keenest tact to test and try. Then let the stranger, as is just, obtain or be refused thy trust. Then he whose heart was rich in store of scriptures life-directing lore, King Jambavan, stood forth and cried, Suspect a foe allied with Rav, a letter 1E47 lord of Lanka's isle, and Rakshas sin and Rakshas guile. Then Mainda, wisest chief, who knew the wrong, the right, the false, the true, pondered a while, then silence broke, and thus his sober counsel spoke. Let one with gracious speech draw near, and gently charm Vibhishan, a letter 1E47's ear, till he the soothing witchery feel, and all his secret heart reveal. So thou his aims and hopes shalt know, and hail the friend or shun the foe. Not he, Hanuman cried, not he who taught the gods, 928 may rival thee, supreme in power of quickest sense, first in the art of eloquence. But hear me soothly speak, O king, and learn the hope to which I cling. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 comes no crafty spy, urged by his brother's fault to fly. With righteous soul that loathes the sin, he fled from Lanka and his kin. If strangers question, doubt will rise and chill the heart of one so wise. Marred by distrust the parle will end, and thou wilt lose a faithful friend. Nor let it seem so light a thing to sound a stranger's heart, O king. And he, I ween, whate'er he say, will ne'er an evil thought betray. He comes a friend in happy time, loathing his brother for his crime. His ear has heard thine old renown, the might that struck King Bali down, and set Sugriva on the throne. And looking now to thee alone, he comes thy matchless aid to win, and punish Rav, a letter 1E47 for his sin. Thus have I tried thy heart to move, and thus Vibhish, a letter 1E47's truth to prove. Still in his friendship I confide, but ponder, wisest, and decide. Canto 18. Rama's speech. Then Rama's rising doubt was stilled, and friendly thoughts his bosom filled. Thus, deep in Scripture's lore, he spake, the suppliant will I ne'er forsake, nor my protecting aid refuse when one in name of friendship sues. Though faults and folly blot his fame, pity and help he still may claim. He ceased, Sugriva bowed his head and pondered for a while and said, past number be his faults or few, what think ye of the Rakshas who, when threatening clouds of danger rise, deserts his brother's side and flies? Say Vánars, who may hope to find true friendship in his faithless kind. The son of Raghu heard his speech. He cast a hasty look on each of those brave Vánar chiefs, and while upon his lips there played a smile, to Lakshman, a letter 1E47 turned, and thus expressed the thoughts that moved his gallant breast. Well versed in Scripture's lore, and sage and duly reverent to age, is he, with long experience stored, who counsels like this Vánar lord. Yet here, methinks, for searching eyes some deeper, subtler matter lies. To you and all the world are known the perils of a monarch's throne, while foe and stranger, kith and kin, by his misfortune trust to win. By hope of such advantage led, Vibhish, a letter 1E47 o'er the sea has fled. He in his brother's stead would reign, and our alliance seeks to gain, and we his offer may embrace, a stranger and of alien race. But if he comes a spy and foe, what power has he to strike a blow in furtherance of his close design? What is his strength compared with mine? And can I, Vánar king, forget the great, the universal debt, ever to aid and welcome those who pray for shelter, friends or foes? Hast thou not heard the deathless praise won by the dove in olden days, who conquering his fear and hate welcomed the slayer of his mate, and gave a banquet to refresh the weary fowler of his flesh? Now hear me, Vánar king, rehearse what a letter 1E47 929, spoke in ancient verse, Saint a letter 1E47 V's son, who loved the truth and clave to virtue from his youth. Strike not the suppliant when he stands and asks thee with beseeching hands for shelter. Strike him not although he were thy father's mortal foe. No, yield him, be he proud or meek, the shelter which he comes to seek, and save thy foeman, if the deed should cost thy life in desperate need. And shall I hear the wretched cry, and my protecting aid deny? Shall I a suppliant's prayer refuse, and heaven and glory basely lose? No, I will do for honor's sake and as the holy a letter 1E47 spake, preserve a hero's name from stain, and bliss in heaven and glory gain. Bound by a solemn vow, I swear that all my saving help should share who sought me in distress and cried, Thou art my hope, and none beside. Then go, I pray thee, Vánar king, Vibhish, a letter 1E47 to my presence bring, yea, were he Rav a letter 1E47's self, my vow forbids me to reject him now. He ceased, the Vánar king approved, and Rama toward Vibhish, a letter 1E47 moved. So moves a brother god to greet Lord Indra from his heavenly seat. Canto 19. Vibhishan's Counsel. When Raghu's son had owned his claim down from the air Vibhish, a letter 1E47 came, and with his 4 attendants bent at Rama's feet most reverent. O Rama, thus he cried, in me Vibhish a letter 1E47, Rav a letter 1E47 s brother C. By him disgraced than aid I seek, sure refuge of the poor and weak. From Lanka, friends in wealth I fly, and reft of all on thee rely. On thee, the wretch's firmest friend, my kingdom, joys, and life depend. With glance of favor Rama eyed the Raksha's chief, and thus replied. First from thy lips I fain would hear each brighter hope, each darker fear. Speak, stranger, that I well may know the strength and weakness of the foe. He ceased, the Raksha's chief obeyed, and thus in turn his answer made. O Prince, the self-existent gave this boon to Rav a letter 1E47. He may brave all foes in fight. No fiend or snake, Gandharva, God, his life may take. His brother Kumb, H a K, a R letter 1E47 avise in might with him, who rules the skies. The captain of his armies, fame perhaps has taught the warrior's name, is terrible Prahesta, who King M a letter 1E47 IBH a DR a S, 930, self o'erthrew. Where is the warrior found to face young Indrajit, when armed with brace and guard? 931, and bow he stands in mail and laughs at spear and arrowy hail. Within his city, Lanka, dwell 10 million giants fierce and fell, who wear each varied shape at will and eat the flesh of those they kill. These hosts against the gods he led, and heavenly might discomfited. Then Rama cried, I little heed gigantic strength or doughty deed. In spite of all their might has done the king, the captain, and the sun shall fall beneath my fury dead, and thou shalt reign in Rav, a letter 1E47 s stead. He, though in depths of earth he dwell, or seek protection down in hell, or kneel before the Sire Supreme, his forfeit life shall ne'er redeem. Yea, by my brothers' lives I swear, I will not to my home repair, till Rav a letter 1E47 and his kith and kin have paid in death the price of sin. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 bowed his head and cried, Thy conquering army will I guide to storm the city of the foe, and aid the tyrant's overthrow. Thus spake Vibhish, a letter 1E47. Rama pressed the Raksha's chieftain to his breast, and cried to Kshm, a letter 1E47. Haste and bring sea water for the new-made king. He spoke, and o'er Vibhish, a letter 1E47 s head, the consecrating drops were shed mid-shouts that hailed with one accord the giants, King and Lanka's lord. Is there no way, Hanuman cried, no passage o'er the boisterous tide? How may we lead the Vánar host in triumph to the farther coast? Thus, said Vibhish, a letter 1E47, I advise, let Raghu's son in suppliant guise entreat the mighty sea to lend his succor and this cause befriend. His channels, as the wise have told, by Sagar's sons were dug of old, 932, nor will high-thoughted ocean scorn a prince of Sagar's lineage born. He ceased, the prudent counsel won the glad assent of Raghu's son. Then on the ocean shore, a bed of tender sacred grass was spread, where Rama at the close of day like fire upon an altar lay. Canto 20. The Spies. Sarjula, Rav, a letter 1E47 s spy, surveyed the legions on the strand arrayed, and bore, his bosom racked with fear, these tidings to the monarch's ear. They come, they come. A rushing tide, 10 leagues they spread from side to side, and on to storm thy city press, fierce rovers of the wilderness. Rich in each princely power and grace, the pride of Dasaratha's race, Rama and Shm, a letter 1E47 lead their bands, and halt them on the ocean sands. O monarch rise, this peril meet, risk not the danger of defeat. First let each wiser art be tried, bribe them or win them or divide. Such was the counsel of the spy, and Rav, a letter 1E47 called to Sukha. Fly, Sugriva lord of Vánar seek, and thus my kingly message speak. Great power and might and fame are thine, brave scion of a royal line, King Riksharaja's son, in the a brother and a friend I see. How wronged by me canst thou complain? What profit here pretend to gain? If from the wood the wife I stole of Rama of the prudent soul, What cause hast thou to mourn the theft? Thou art not injured or bereft. Return, O king, thy steps retrace and seek thy mountain dwelling place. No, never may thy hosts within my cause walls a footing win. A mighty town whose strength defies the gathered armies of the skies. He ceased, obedient Sukha heard. With wings and plumage of a bird he rose in eager speed, and through the air upon his errand flew. Borne o'er the sea with rapid wing he stood above the Vánar king, and spoke aloud, sublime in air, the message he was charged to bear. The Vánar heard the words he spoke, and quick redoubling stroke on head, and pinions hemmed him round, and bore him struggling to the ground. The Rakshas wounded, and distressed these words to Raghu's son addressed. Quick, quick! This Vánar host restrain, for heralds never must be slain. To him alone, a wretch untrue, the punishment of death is due who leaves his master's speech unsaid, and speaks another in its stead. Moved by the suppliant speech and prayer up sprang the prince and cried, Forbear. Saved from his wild assailants' blows again the Rakshas herald rose, and borne on light wings to the sky addressed Sugriva from on high. O Vánar monarch, chief endued with power and wondrous fortitude, what answer is my king, the fear and scourge of weeping worlds to hear? Go tell thy lord, Sugriva cried, thou Rama's foe, art thus defied. His arm the guilty Bali slew, thus, tyrant, shalt thou perish too. Thy sons, thy friends, proud king, and all thy kith and kin with thee shall fall, and, emptied of the giant's brood, burnt Lanka be a solitude. Fly to the sun god's pathway, go and hide thee deep in hell below. In vain from Rama shalt thou flee though heavenly warriors fight for thee. Thine arm subdued, securely bold, the vulture king infirm and old, but will thy puny strength avail when Raghu's wrathful sons assail? A captive in thy palace lies the lady of the lotus eyes. Thou knowest not how fierce and strong is he whom thou hast dared to wrong. The best of Raghu's lineage, he whose conquering hand shall punish thee. He ceased, and Angad raised a cry, this is no herald but a spy. Above thee from his eyrie post his rapid eye surveyed our host, where with advantage he might scan our gathered strength from rear to van. Bind him, Vanners, bind the spy, nor let him back to Lanka fly. They hurled the Rakshas to the ground, they grasped his neck, his pinions bound, and firmly held him while in vain his voice was lifted to complain. But Rama's heart inclined to spare, he listened to his plaint and prayer, and cried aloud, O Vanners, cease, the captive from his bonds release. Canto 21. Ocean threatened. His hands in reverence Rama raised, and southward o'er the ocean gazed. Then on the sacred grass that made his lowly couch his limbs he laid. His head on that strong arm reclined which Sítá, best of womankind, had loved in happier days to hold with soft arms decked with pearls and gold. Then rising from his bed of grass, this day, he cried, the host shall pass triumphant to the southern shore, or ocean's self shall be no more. Thus vowing in his constant breast again he turned him to his rest, and there, his eyes in slumber closed, silent beside the sea reposed. Thrice rose the day-god, thrice he set, the lord of ocean came not yet, thrice came the night, but Raghu's son no answer by his service won. To Lakshman, a letter 1E47 thus the hero cried, his eyes aflame with wrath and pride. In vain, the softer gifts that grace the good are offered to the base. Long-suffering, patience, gentle speech their thankless hearts can never reach. The world to him its honor pays whose ready tongue himself can praise, who scorns the true and hates the right, whose hand is ever raised to smite. Each milder art is tried in vain, it wins no glory but disdain. And victory owns no softer charm than might, which nerves a warrior's arm. My humble suit is still denied by ocean's overweening pride. This day the monsters of the deep in throes of death shall wildly leap. My shafts shall rend the serpents curled in caverns of the watery world, disclose each sunless depth, and bear the tangled pearl and coral there. Away with mercy. At a time like this compassion is a crime. Welcome the battle and the foe. My bow. My arrows and my bow. This day the Vanners' feet shall tread the conquered sea's exhausted bed, and he who never feared before shall tremble to his farthest shore. Red flashed his eyes with angry glow. He stood and grasped his mighty bow terrific as the fire of doom whose quenchless flames the world consume. His clanging cord the archer drew, and swift the fiery arrows flew fierce as the flashing levin sent by him who rules the firmament. Down through the startled waters sped each missile with its flaming head. The foamy billows rose and sank, and dashed upon the trembling bank. Sea monsters of tremendous form with crash and roar of thunder storm. Still the wild waters rose, and fell crowned with white foam and pearl and shell. Each serpent, startled from his rest, raised his fierce eyes and glowing crest. And prisoned Danavs, 933, where they dwelt in depths below the terror felt. Again upon his string he laid a flaming shaft, but LAKSHM a letter 1E47 stayed his arm, with gentle reasoning tried to soothe his angry mood, and cried, "Brother, reflect. The wise control the rising passions of the soul. Let ocean grant, without thy threat, the boon on which thy heart is set. That gracious Lord will ne'er refuse when Rama son of Raghu sues." He ceased, and voices from the air fell clear and loud, "Spare, Rama, spare." Canto 22. Ocean threatened. With angry menace Rama, best of Raghu's sons, the sea addressed. "With fiery flood of arrowy rain thy channels will I dry and drain. And I and all the Vánar host will reach on foot the farther coast. Thou shalt not from destruction save the creatures of the teeming wave, and lapse of time shall ne'er efface the memory of the dire disgrace." Thus spoke the warrior, and prepared the mortal shaft which never spared, known mystic weapon, by the name of Brahma, red with quenchless flame. Great terror, as he strained the bow, struck heaven above and earth below. Through echoing skies the thunder pealed, and startled mountains rocked and reeled. The earth was black with sudden night, and heaven was blotted from the sight. Then ever and anon the glare of meteors shot through murky air, and with a wild terrific sound, red lightnings struck the trembling ground. In furious gusts the fierce wind blew, tall trees it shattered and o'erthrew, and smiting with a giant stroke, huge masses from the mountain broke. A cry of terror long and shrill came from each valley, plain and hill. Each ruined dale, each riven peak re-echoed with a wail or shriek. While Raghu's son undaunted gazed, the waters of the deep were raised, and still uplifted more and more, leapt in wild flood upon the shore. Still Rama looked upon the tide, and kept his post unterrified. Then from the seething flood upreared majestic ocean's form appeared, as rising from his eastern height springs through the sky the Lord of light. Attendant on their monarch came sea serpents with their eyes aflame. Like lazulite mid-burning gold, his form was wondrous to behold. Bright with each fairest precious stone, a chain about his neck was thrown. Calm shone his lotus eyes beneath the blossoms of his heavenly wreath, and many a pearl and sea-born gem flashed in the monarch's diadem. Their Ganga, tributary queen, and Sindhu, 934 by his lord, were seen, and every stream and brook renowned in ancient story girt him round. Then as the waters rose and swelled, the king with suppliant hands upheld, his glorious head to Rama bent and thus addressed him reverent. "Air, ether, fire, earth, water, true to nature's will, their course pursue, and I, as ancient laws ordain, unfordable must still remain. Yet Raghu's son, my counsel hear. I ne'er for love or hope or fear will pile my waters in a heap and leave a pathway through the deep. Still shall my care for thee provide an easy passage o'er the tide, and like a city's paven street shall be the road beneath thy feet." He ceased, and Rama spoke again. "This spell is ne'er invoked in vain. Where shall the magic shaft to spend the fury of its might descend? Shoot," ocean cried, "thine arrow forth with all its fury to the north, where sacred Drumakulia lies, whose glory with thy glory vies. There dwells a wild Abhira, 935, race, as vile in act as foul of face fierce Dacius, 936, who delight in ill and drink my tributary rill. My soul no longer may endure their neighborhood, and touch impure. At these, O son of Raghu, aim thine arrow with the quenchless flame." Swift from the bow, as Rama drew his cord, the fiery arrow flew. Earth groaned to feel the wound, and sent a rush of water through the rent. And famed forever is the well of Vr, a letter 1E47 and 937, where the arrow fell. Then every brook and lake beside throughout the region Rama dried. But yet he gave a boon to bless and fertilize the wilderness. No fell disease should taint the air, and sheep and kine should prosper there. Earth should produce each pleasant root. The stately trees should bend with fruit, oil, milk, and honey should abound, and fragrant herbs should clothe the ground. Then spake the king of brooks and seas to Raghu's son in words like these. Now let a wondrous task be done by Nala, Vishvakarma's son, who, born of one of Vánar race, inherits by his father's grace a share of his celestial art. Call Nala to perform his part, and he, divinely taught and skilled, a bridge athwart the sea shall build. He spoke and vanished. Nala, best of Vánar chiefs, the king addressed. O'er the deep sea where monsters play a bridge, O Rama, will I lay, for, sharer of my father's skill, mine is the power and mine the will. 'Tis vain to try each gentler art to bribe and soothe the thankless heart. In vain on such is mercy spent, it yields to naught but punishment. Through fear alone will ocean now a passage o'er his waves allow. My mother, ere she bore her son, this boon from Vishvakarma won. O Mandari, thy child shall be in skill and glory next to me. But why unbidden should I fill thine ear with praises of my skill? Command the Vánar hosts to lay foundations for the bridge today. He spoke, and swift at Rama's hest up sprang the Vánars from their rest. The mandate of the king obeyed, and sought the forest's mighty shade. Unrooted trees to earth they threw, and to the sea the timber drew. The stately palm was bowed and bent, asokas from the ground were rent, and towering sauls and light bamboos, and trees with flowers of varied hues, with loveliest creepers wreathed and crowned, shook, reeled, and fell upon the ground. With mighty engines piles of stone and seated hills were overthrown. Unprisoned waters sprang on high in, rain descending from the sky. And ocean, with a roar and swell, heaved wildly when the mountains fell. Then the great bridge of wondrous strength was built, 100 leagues in length. Rocks huge as autumn clouds bound fast with cordage from the shore were cast, and fragments of each riven hill, and trees whose flowers adorned them still. Wild was the tumult, loud the din as ponderous rocks went thundering in. Ere set of sun, so twalled each crew 10 leagues, and 4 the structure grew. The labors of the second day gave 20 more of ready way, and on the 5th, when sank the sun, the whole stupendous work was done. O'er the broad way the Vánars sped, nor swayed it with their countless tread. Exultant on the ocean strand, Vibhishan, a letter 1E47 stood, and mace in hand, longed eager for the onward way, and chafed impatient at delay. Then thus to Rama trained and tried in battle King Sugriva cried, Come, Hanuman's broad back ascend, let Angad help to Lakshman, a letter 1E47 lend. These high above the sea shall bear their burthen through the ways of air. So with Sugriva, born Orchestrated Shvaku's sons the legions led. Behind, the Vánar hosts pursued their march in endless multitude. Some skimmed the surface of the wave, to some the air a passage gave. Amid their ceaseless roar, the sound of ocean's fearful voice was drowned, as o'er the bridge by Nala planned they hastened on to Lanka's strand, where, by the pleasant brooks, mid trees loaded with fruit, they took their ease. Canto 24. The Spies return. As shine the heavens with autumn's moon refulgent in the height of noon, so shone with light, which Rama gave that army of the bold and brave, as from the sea it marched away in war's magnificent array, and earth was shaken by the beat and trampling of unnumbered feet. Then to the giants' ears were borne the mingled notes of drum and horn, and clash of tambours smote the sky, and shouting and the battle cry. The sound of martial strains inspired each chieftain, and his bosom fired. Wild giants from their walls replied, and answering shouts the foe defied. Then Rama looked on Lanka where bright banners floated in the air, and, pierced with anguish at the view, his loving thoughts to Sítá flew. There, prisoned by the giant, lies my lady of the tender eyes. Like Rohi letter 1E47, I acute the queen of stars o'erpoured by the fiery Mars. Then turned he to his brother chief and cried in agony of grief. See on the hill, divinely planned and built by Vishvakarma's hand, the towers and domes of Lanka rise in peerless beauty to the skies. Bright from afar the city shines with gleam of palaces and shrines, like pale clouds through the region spread by Vish, letter 1E47, US self-inhabited. Fair gardens grow, and woods between the stately domes are fresh and green, where trees their bloom and fruit display, and sweet birds sing on every spray. Each bird is mad with joy, and bees sing laboring in the bloomy trees on branches, by the breezes bowed, where the gay kyle's voice is loud. This said, he ranged with warlike art each body of the host apart. There in the center, Rama cried, be Anged's place by Neela's side. Let Rishab of impetuous might be lord and leader on the right, and Gandamadan, next in rank, be captain of the farther flank. LAKSHM a letter 1E47, and I the hosts will lead, and Jambavan of Ursine breed, with bold SUSH letter 1E47 unused to fear, and Vegadarsi guide the rear. Thus Rama spoke, the chiefs obeyed, and all the Vánar hosts arrayed showed awful as the autumn sky when clouds embattled form on high. Their arms were mighty trees o'erthrown, and massy blocks of mountain stone. One hope in every warlike breast, one firm resolve, they onward pressed, to die in fight or batter down the walls and towers of Lanka's town. Those marshalled legions Rama eyed, and thus to King Sugriva cried, now, monarch, ere the hosts proceed, let Sukha, Rav a letter 1E47 spy, be freed. He spoke. The Vánar gave consent and loosed him from imprisonment, and Sukha, trembling and afraid, his homeward way to Rav a letter 1E47 made. Loud laughed the lord of Lanka's isle, where hast thou stayed this weary while? Why is thy plumage marred, and why do twisted cords thy pinions tie? Say, comest thou in evil plight the victim of the Vánar's spite? He ceased, the spy his fear controlled, and to the king his story told. I reached the ocean's distant shore, thy message to the king I bore. In sudden wrath the Vánars rose, they struck me down with furious blows. They seized me helpless on the ground, my plumage rent, my pinions bound. They would not, headlong in their ire, consider, listen, or inquire. So fickle, wrathful, rough, and rude is the wild forest multitude. There, marshalling the Vánar bands, King Rama with Sugriva stands, Rama the matchless warrior, who Viradha and Kabandha slew, Kara, and countless giants more, and tracks his queen to Lanka's shore. A bridge athwart the sea was cast, and o'er it have his legions passed. Hark! Heralded by horns and drums the terrible avenger comes. E'en now the giant's isle he fills with warriors huge as clouds and hills, and burning with vindictive hate, will thunder soon at Lanka's gate. Yield or oppose him, choose between thy safety and the Maithil queen. He ceased, the tyrant's eyeballs blazed with fury as his voice he raised. No, if the dwellers of the sky Gandharvas, fiends assail me, I will keep the Maithil lady still, nor yield her back for fear of ill. When shall my shafts with iron hail my foeman, Raghu's son, assail, thick as the bees with eager wing beat on the flowery trees of spring? Oh, let me meet my foe at length, and strip him of his vaunted strength, fierce as the sun who shines afar stealing the light of every star. Strong as the sea's impetuous might my ways are like the tempest's flight, but Rama knows not this, or he in terror from my face would flee. Canto 25. Rávan's Spies, 938. When Rama and the host he led across the sea had safely sped, thus Rav a letter 1E47, moved by wrath and pride, to Sukha, and to Sar a letter 1E47 cried. O counselors, the Vánar host has passed the sea from coast to coast, and Dasaratha's son has wrought a wondrous deed surpassing thought. And now in truth I needs must know the strength and number of the foe. Go ye, to Rama's host repair, and count me all the legions there. Learn well what power each captain leads his name, and fame for warlike deeds. Learn by what artist's wondrous aid that bridge athwart the sea was made. Learn how the Vánar host came o'er, and halted on the island's shore. Mark Rama son of Raghu well, his valor, strength, and weapons tell. Watch his advisers one by one, and Lakshman a letter 1E47, Raghu's younger son. Learn with observant eyes, and bring unerring tidings to your king. He ceased, then swift and Vánar guys forth on their errand sped the spies. They reached the Vánars, and, dismayed, their never-ending lines surveyed, nor would they try, in mere despair, to count the countless legions there that crowded valley, plain, and hill, that pressed about each cave and rill. Though sea-like o'er the land were spread the endless hosts which Rama led, the bridge by thousands yet was lined, and eager myriads pressed behind. But sage Vibhish, a letter 1E47's watchful eyes had marked the giants in disguise. He gave command the pair to seize, and told the tale in words like these. O Rama, these, well-known erewhile, are giant sons of Lanka's isle, two counselors of Rav, a letter 1E47 sent to watch the invading armament. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 ceased. At Rama's look the Rakshas' envoys quailed and shook, then suppliant hand to hand they pressed, and thus Ikshvaku's son addressed. O Rama, bear the truth we speak. Our monarch Rav, a letter 1E47 bade us seek the Vánar legions and survey their numbers, strength, and vast array. Then Rama, friend and hope and guide of suffering creatures, thus replied. Now giants, if your eyes have scanned our armies, numbering every band, marked lord and chief, and gazed their fill return to Rav, a letter 1E47 when ye will. If aught remain, if aught anew ye fain would scan with closer view, Vibhish, a letter 1E47, ready at your call, we'll lead you forth and show you all. Think not of bonds and capture. Fear no loss of life, no peril here, for, captive, helpless, and unarmed, an envoy never should be harmed. Again to Lanka's town repair, speed to the giant monarch there, and be these words to Rav, a letter 1E47 told, fierce brother of the Lord of Gold. Now, tyrant, tremble for thy sin, call up thy friends, thy kith and kin, and let the power and might be seen which made thee bold to steal my queen. Tomorrow shall thy mournful eye behold thy bravest warriors die, and Lanka's city, tower and wall, struck by my fiery shafts, will fall. Then shall my vengeful blow descend its rage on thee, and thine to spend, fierce as the fiery bolt that flew from heaven against the Danav crew, mid those rebellious demons sent by him who rules the firmament. Thus spake Ikshvaku's son, and ceased. The giants from their bonds released lauded the king with glad accord, and hasted homeward to their lord. Before the tyrant side by side Suka, and Sar, a letter 1E47 stood and cried. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 seized us, king, and fain his helpless captives would have slain. But glorious Rama saw us, he, great-hearted hero, made us free. There in one spot our eyes beheld 4 chiefs on earth, unparalleled, who with the guardian gods may vie, who rule the regions of the sky. There Rama stood, the boast and pride of Raghu's race, by Lakshman, a letter 1E47's side. There stood the sage Vibhish, a letter 1E47, their Sugriva strong beyond compare. These 4 alone can batter down gate, rampart, wall, and Lanka's town. Nay, Rama matchless in his form, a single foe thy town would storm. So wondrous are his weapons, he needs not the succor of the 3. Why speak we of the countless train that fills the valley, hill, and plain, the millions of the Vánar breed whom Rama and Sugriva laid? O king, be wise, contend no more, and Sítá to her lord restore. Canto 26. The Vánar chiefs. Not if the gods in heaven who dwell, Gandharvas, and the fiends of hell in banded opposition rise against me, will I yield my prize. Still trembling from the ungentle touch of Vánar hands ye fear too much, and bid me, heedless of the shame, give to her lord the Maythil dame. Thus spoke the king in stern reproof, then mounted to his palace roof aloft o'er many a story raised, and on the lands beneath him gazed. There by his faithful spies he stood and looked on sea and hill and wood. There stretched before him far away the Vánars, numberless array. Scarce could the meadows, tender green beneath their trampling feet be seen. He looked a while with furious eye, then questioned thus the nearer spy. Bend, Sar, a letter 1E47, bend thy gaze, and show the leaders of the Vánar foe. Tell me their heroes' names, and teach the valor, power, and might of each. Obedient Sar, a letter 1E47 eyed the van, the leaders marked, and thus began. That chief conspicuous at the head of warriors in the forest bred, who hither bends his ruthless eye and shouts his fearful battle cry, whose voice with pealing thunder shakes all Lanka, with the groves and lakes and hills that tremble at the sound, is Nila, for his might renowned, first of the Vánar lords controlled by King Sugriva lofty-souled. He who his mighty arm extends, and his fierce eye on Lanka bends in stature like a stately tower, in color like a lotus flower. who with his wild earth-shaking cries thee, Rav a letter 1E47, to the field defies, is Anged, by Sugriva's care anointed his imperial heir. In wondrous strength, in martial fire peer of King Bali's self, his sire, for Rama's sake in arms arrayed like Ru letter 1E47 called to Sakra's aid. Behind him, girt by warlike bands, Nala the mighty Vánar stands, the son of Visvakarma, he who built the bridge athwart the sea. Look farther yet, O king, and mark that chieftain clothed in sandal bark. 'Tis Sweta, famed among his peers, a sage whom all his race reveres. See, in Sugriva's ear he speaks, then, hasting back, his post reseeks, and turns his practiced eye to view the squadrons he has formed anew. Next Cumud stands who roamed of yore on Gamades, 939, delightful shore, feared, where the waving woods invest his seat on Mount Sanrachan's crest. Next him a chieftain strong and dread, come ch a letter 1E47 letter 1E0d, at his legion's head. Exulting in his warrior might he hastens, burning for the fight, and boasts that his unaided powers shall cast to earth thy walls and towers. Mark that chief of Lion Gate, who views thee with a glance of hate, as though his very eyes would burn the city walls to which they turn? 'Tis Rampa, Vánar king. He dwells in Krish, letter 1E47 a Giris tangled dells, where Vindhya's pleasant slopes are spread, and fair Sudarshan lifts his head. There, listening with erected ears, Sarabha mighty chief appears. His soul is burning for the strife, nor dreads the jeopardy of life. He trembles as he moves, for ire, and bends around his glance of fire. Next, like a cloud that veils the skies, a chieftain of terrific size, conspicuous mid the Vánars, comes with battle shout like rolling drums, 'tis Panas, trained in war and tried, who dwells on Periyatra's side. He, far away, the chief who throws a glory o'er the marshalled rows that ranged behind their captain, stand exulting on the ocean strand, is Vinata the fierce in fight, preeminent like Dardir's height. That chieftain bending down to drink on lovely VE letter 1E47, s verdant brink, is Crathan. Now he lifts his eyes and thee to mortal fray defies. Next Gavya comes, whose haughty mind scorns all the warriors of his kind. He comes to trample, such his boast, on Lanka with his single host. Canto 27. The Vánar chiefs. Yet more remain, brave chiefs who stake their noble lives for Rama's sake. See, glorious, golden-coated, one who glisters like the morning sun, whom thousands of his race surround, 'tis Hara for his strength renowned. Next comes a mighty chieftain, he whose legions, armed with rock and tree, press on, in numbers passing tale, the ramparts of our town to scale. Rav a letter 1E47, see the king advance terrific with his fiery glance, girt by the bravest of his train majestic as the god of rain, Parjanya, when his host of clouds about the king, embattled, crowds. On Rikshavan's high mountain nursed, in Narmada 940, he slakes his thirst. Dumra, proud Ursine chief, who leads wild warriors whom the forest breeds. His brother, next in strength and age in, Jambavan the famous sage. Of yore his might and skill he lent to him who rules the firmament, and Indra's liberal boons repaid the chieftain for the timely aid. They're like a gloomy cloud that flies borne by the tempest through the skies, Pramathi stands. He roamed of yore the forest wilds on Ganga's shore, where elephants were struck with dread and trembling at his coming fled. There on his foes he loved to sate the old hereditary hate. 941, look, Gaja and Gavaksha show their lust of battle with the foe. See Nala burning for the fray, and Nila chafing at delay. Behind the eager captains press wild hosts in numbers numberless, and each for Rama's sake would fall or force his way through Lanka's wall. Canto 28. The Chieftains. Their Sar a letter 1E47 ceased. Then Sukha broke the silence, and to Rav a letter 1E47 spoke. O monarch, yonder chiefs survey. Like elephants in size are they, and tower like stately trees that grow where Ganga's nursing waters flow. Yea, tall as mountain pines that fling long shadows o'er the snow-crowned king. They all in wild Kishkantha dwell, and serve their lord Sugriva well. The gods and bright Gandharvas, seed, they take each form that suits their need. Now farther look, O monarch, where those chieftains stand, a glorious pair, conspicuous for their godlike frames, Dwivid and Mainda are their names. Their lips the drink of heaven have known, and Brahma claims them for his own. That chieftain whom thine eyes behold refulgent like a hill of gold, before whose wrathful might the sea roused from his rest would turn and flee, the peerless Vánar, he who came to Lanka for the Maithil dame, the wind god's son Hanuman. Thou hast seen him once, behold him now. Still nearer let thy glance be bent, and mark that prince preeminent mid chieftains for his strength and size and splendor of his lotus eyes. Far through the worlds his virtues shine, the glory of Ikshvaku's line. The path of truth he never leaves, and still through all to duty cleaves. Deep in the Vedas, skilled to wield the mystic shafts to him revealed, whose flaming darts to heaven ascend, and through the earth a passage rend. In might like him who rules the sky, like Yama, when his wrath grows high, whose queen, the darling of his soul, thy magic art deceived and stole. There royal Rama stands and longs for battle to avenge his wrongs. Near on his right a prince, in hue like pure gold freshly burnished, view, broad as his chest, his eye is red, his black hair curls about his head. Ts L a K S H M a letter 1E47, faithful friend, who shares his brother's joys, his brother's cares. By Rama's side, he loves to stand and serve him as his better hand, for whose dear sake without a sigh the warrior youth would gladly die. On Rama's left Vibhish, a letter 1E47 view, with giants for his retinue, king-making drops have dewed his head, appointed monarch in thy stead. Behold that chieftain sternly still, high towering like a rooted hill, supreme in power and pride of place, the monarch of the Vánar race. Raised high above his woodland kind, in might and glory, frame and mind, his head above his host he shows conspicuous as the lord of snows. His home is far from hostile eyes, where deep in woods Kishkandha lies. A glistering chain which flowers bedeck with burnished gold adorns his neck. Queen Fortune, loved by gods and kings, to him her chosen favorite clings. That chain he owes to Rama's grace, and Tara and his kingly place. In him the great Sugriva know, whom Rama rescued from his foe. 942. Canto 29. Sarjula captured. The giant viewed with earnest ken the Vánars and the lords of men, then thus, with grief and anger moved, in bitter tone the spies reproved. Can faithful servants hope to please their master with such fates as these? Or hope ye with wild words to wring the bosom of your lord and king? Such words were better said by those who come arrayed our mortal foes. In vain your ears have heard the sage, and listened to the lore of age untaught, though lectured many a day, the first great lesson, to obey. T's marvel Rav, a letter 1E47 reigns and rules, whose counselors are blind and fools. Has death no terrors that ye dare to tempt your monarch to despair, from whose imperial mandate flow disgrace and honor, weal and woe? Yea, forest trees, when flames are fanned about their scorching trunks, may stand, but naught can set the sinner free when kings the punishment decree. I would not in mine anger spare the traitorous foe-praising pair, but years of faithful service plead for pardon, and they shall not bleed. Henceforth to me be dead, depart, far from my presence and my heart. Thus spoke the angry king. The two cried, Long live Rav, a letter 1E47, and withdrew. The giant monarch turned and cried to strong Mahadar at his side. Go thou, and spies more faithful bring, more duteous to their lord the king. Swift at his word, Mahadar shed, and came returning at the head of long-tried messengers, who bent before their monarch reverent. Go quickly hence, said Rav, a letter 1E47, scan with keenest eyes the foeman's plan. Learn who, as nearest friends, advise and mold each secret enterprise. Learn when he wakes and goes to rest, sound every purpose of his breast. Learn what the prince intends today, watch keenly all and come away. With joy they heard the words he said. Then with Sarjula at their head, about the giant king, they went with circling paces reverent. By fair Suvella's grassy side the chiefs of Raghu's race they spied, where, shaded by the waving wood, Vibhish, a letter 1E47, and Sugriva stood. A while they rested there and viewed the Vánars, countless multitude. Vibhish, a letter 1E47, with observant eyes knew at a glance the giant spies, and bade the warriors of his train bind the rash foes with cord and chain. Sarjula's is the sin, he cried. He 'neath the Vanar's hands had died, but Rama from their fury freed the captive in his utmost need, and, merciful at sight of woe, loosed all the spies and bade them go. Then home to Lanka's monarch fled the giant chiefs discomfited. Canto 30. Sarjula's speech. They told their lord that Rama still lay waiting by Suvela's hill. The tyrant, flushed with angry glow, heard of the coming of the foe, and thus with close inquiry pressed Sarjula's spokesman for the rest. Why art thou sad, night rover? Speak, has grief or terror changed thy cheek? Have the wild Vanars, hostile bands assailed thee with their mighty hands? Sarjula heard, but scarce might speak, his trembling tones were faint and weak. O giant king, in vain we try the purpose of the foe to spy. Their strength and number none may tell, and Rama guards his legions well. He leaves no hope to prying eyes, and parley with the chiefs denies. Each road and path of Vanar guard, of mountain size, has closed and barred. Soon as my feet an entrance found by giants, was I seized and bound. And wounded sore I fell beneath their fists and knees and hands and teeth. Then trembling, bleeding, well-nigh dead, to Rama's presence was I led. He in his mercy stooped to save, and freedom to the captive gave. With rocks and shattered mountains, he has bridged his way athwart the sea, and he and all his legions wait embattled close to Lanka's gate. Soon will the host thy wall assail, and swarming on the rampart scale. Now, O my king, his consort yield, or arm thee with the sword and shield. This choice is left thee, choose between thy safety and the Maithil queen. 943. Canto 31. The magic head. The tyrant's troubled eye confessed the secret fear that filled his breast. With dread of coming woe, dismayed he called his counselors to aid, then sternly silent, deep in thought, his chamber in the palace sought. Then, as the surest hope of all, the monarch bade his servants call Vidyajeva, whom magic skill made master of the means of ill. Then spake the lord of Lanka's isle, Come, Sítá, with thine arts beguile. With magic skill and deftest care a head like Rama's own prepare. This head, long shafts and mighty bow to Janak's daughter will we show. He ceased, Vidyajeva obeyed, and wondrous magic skill displayed. And Rav a letter 1E47 for the art he showed an ornament of price bestowed. Then to the grove, where Sítá lay, the lord of Lanka took his way. Pale, wasted, weeping, on the ground the melancholy queen he found, whose thoughts in utmost stress of ill were fixed upon her husband still. The giant king approached the dame, declared in tones of joy his name, then heeding not her wild distress bespake her, stern and pitiless. The prince to whom thy fancies cling, though loved and wooed by Lanka's king, who slew the noble Kara, he is slain by warriors sent by me. Thy living root is hewn away, thy scornful pride is tamed today. Thy lord in battle's front has died, and Sítá shall be Rav, a letter 1E47's bride. Hence idle thoughts, thy hope is fled, what wilt thou, Sítá, with the dead? Rise, child of Janak, rise and be the queen of all my queens and me. Incline thine ear, and I will tell, dear lady, how thy husband fell. He bridged his way across the sea, with countless troops to fight with me. The setting sun had flushed the west when on the shore they took their rest. Weary with toil no watch they kept, securely on the sands they slept. Prahesta's troops assailed our foes, and smote them in their deep repose. Scarce could their bravest prove their might, they perished in the dark of night. Axe, spear, and sword, directed well, upon the sleeping myriads fell. First in the fight Prahesta's sword reft of his head, thy slumbering lord. Roused at the din Vibhish, a letter 1E47 rose, the captive of surrounding foes, and Lakshm, a letter 1E47, through the woods that spread around him with his Vanars fled. Hanuman fell. One deadly stroke the neck of King Sugriva broke, and Mainda sank, and Dwivid lay gasping in blood his life away. The Vanars died, or fled dispersed like cloudlets when the storm has burst. Some rose aloft in air, and more ran to the sea and filled the shore. On shore, in woods, on hill and plain our conquering giants left the slain. Thus my victorious host o'erthrew the Vanars, and thy husband slew. See, rudely stained with dust, and red with dropping blood, the severed head. Then, turning to a Rakshas slave, the ruthless king his mandate gave, and straight Vibhishan, who bore the head still wet with dripping gore, the arrows and the mighty bow, bent down before his master low. Vibhishan, cried Rav a letter 1E47, place the head before the lady's face, and let her see with weeping eyes that low in death her husband lies. Before the queen, the giant laid the beauteous head his art had made. And Rav a letter 1E47 cried, thine eyes will know these arrows and the mighty bow. With fame of this by Rama strung the earth, and heaven and hell have rung. Prahasta brought it hither, when his hand had slain thy prince of men. Now, widowed queen, thy hopes resign, forget thy husband and be mine. Canto 32. Sita's Lament. Again her eyes with tears o'erflowed. She gazed upon the head he showed, gazed on the bow so famed of yore, the glorious bow which Rama bore. She gazed upon his cheek and brows, the eyes of her beloved spouse, his lips, the luster of his hair, the priceless gem that glittered there. The features of her lord she knew, and pierced with anguish at the view she lifted up her voice and cried, Kaikeyí, art thou satisfied? Now all thy longings are fulfilled, the joy of Raghu's race is killed, and ruined is the ancient line destroyer by that fraud of thine. Ah, what offense, O cruel dame, what fault in Rama couldst thou blame, to drive him clad in hermit dress with Sita to the wilderness? Great trembling seized her frame, and she fell like a stricken plantain tree. As lie the dead she lay, at length slowly regaining sense and strength, on the dear head she fixed her eye and cried with very bitter cry. Ah, when thy cold dead cheek I view, my hero, I am murdered too. Then first a faithful woman's eyes see sorrow, when her husband dies. When thou, my lord, wast nigh to save, some stealthy hand thy death wound gave. Thou art not dead. Rise, hero, rise, long life was thine, as spake the wise whose words, I ween, are ever true, for faith lies open to their view. Ah, Lord, and shall thy head recline on earth's cold breast, forsaking mine, counting her chill lap dearer far than I and my caresses are? Ah, is it thus these eyes behold thy famous bow, adorned with gold, whereon of yore I loved to bind sweet garlands that my hands had twined? And hast thou sought in heaven a place amid the founders of thy race, where in the home deserved so well thy sires and Dasaratha dwell? Or dost thou shine a brighter star in skies, where blessed immortals are, forsaking in thy lofty scorn the race wherein thy sires were born? Turn to my gaze, O turn then eye, why are thy cold lips silent, why? When first we met as youth and maid, when in thy hand my hand was laid, thy promise was thy steps should be through life in duty's path with me. Remember, faithful still, thy vow, and take me with thee even now. Is that broad bosom where I hung, that neck to which I fondly clung, where flowery garlands breath their scent by hungry dogs and vultures rent? Shall no funereal honors grace the parted lord of Raghu's race, whose bounty liberal fees bestowed, for whom the fires of worship glowed? Kausalya, wild with grief, will see one sole survivor of the three who, in their hermit garments, went to the dark woods in banishment. Then at her cry shall Lakshman, a letter 1E47 tell how, slain by night, the Vánars fell, how to thy side the giants crept, and slew the hero as he slept. Thy fate and mine the queen will know, and broken-hearted die of woe. For my unworthy sake, for mine, Rama, the glory of his line, who bridged his way across the main, is basely in a puddle slain, and I, the graceless wife he wed, have brought this ruin on his head. Me too on him, O Rav a letter 1E47, slay, the wife beside her husband lay. By his dear body let me rest, cheek close to cheek and breast to breast. My happy eyes I then will close, and follow whither Rama goes. Thus cried the miserable dame, when to the king a warder came, before the giant monarch bowed and said that, followed by a crowd of counselors and lords of state, Prahasta stood before the gate, and, sent by some engrossing care, craved audience of his master there. The anxious tyrant left his seat, and hastened forth the chief to meet. Then, summoning his nobles all, took counsel in his regal hall. When Lanka's lord had left the queen, the head and bow no more were seen. The giant king his nobles eyed, and terrible as Yama, cried, O faithful lords, the time is come, gather our hosts with beat of drum. Nigh to the town our foeman draws, be prudent, nor reveal the cause. The nobles listened and obeyed. Swift were the gathered troops arrayed, and countless rovers of the night stood burning for the hour of fight. Canto 33. Ráma. But Ráma, of gentler mood, with pitying eyes the mourner viewed, stole to her side and softly told glad tidings that her heart consoled, revealing with sweet voice and smile the secret of the giant's guile. She, one of those who night and day watching in turns by Sítá lay, though Rakshas born felt pity's touch, and loved the hapless lady much. I heard, she said, thy bitter cry, heard Rav a letter 1E47's speech and thy reply, for, hiding in the thicket near, no word or tone escaped mine ear. When Rav a letter 1E47 hastened forth, I bent my steps to follow as he went, and learnt the secret cause that drove the monarch from the Asoka grove. Believe me, queen, thou needst not weep for Rama slaughtered in his sleep. Thy lion lord of men defies by day attack, by night surprise. Can even giants slay with ease vast hosts who fight with brandished trees, for whom, with eye that never sleeps, his constant watch thy Rama keeps. Lord of the mighty arm and chest, of earthly warriors first and best, whose fame through all the regions rings, proud scion of 100 kings, who guards his life and loves to lend his saving succor to a friend, whose bow no hand but his constrain, thy lord, thy Rama is not slain. Obedient to his master's will, a great magician, trained in ill, with deftest art surpassing, thought that marvelous illusion wrought. Let rising hope thy grief dispel, look up and smile, for all is well, and gentle Lakshmi, fortune's queen, regards thee with a favoring mien. Thy Rama with his Vánar train has thrown a bridge athwart the main, has led his countless legions o'er, and ranged them on the southern shore. These eyes have seen the hero stand girt by his hosts on Lanka's strand, and breathless spies each moment bring fresh tidings to the giant king, and every peer and lord of state is called to counsel and debate. She ceased. The sound, long loud and clear, of gathering armies smote her ear, where call of drum and shell rang out, the tambour and the battle shout. And, while the din the echoes woke, again to Janak's child she spoke. Hear, lady, hear the loud alarms that call the Rakshas troops to arms, from stable and from stall they lead the elephant and neighing steed, brace harness on with deftest care, and chariots for the fight prepare. Swift o'er the trembling ground career-mailed horsemen, armed with axe and spear. And here and there in road and street, the terrible battalions meet. I hear the gathering near and far, the snorting steed, the rattling car. Bold chieftains, leaders of the brave, press densely on, like wave on wave, and bright the evening sunbeams glance on helm and shield, on sword and lance. Hark, lady, to the ringing steel, hark to the rolling chariot wheel, hark to the mettled courser's neigh and drums, loud thunder far away. The Queen of Fortune holds thee dear, for Lanka's troops are struck with fear, and Rama with the lotus eyes, like Indra monarch of the skies, with conquering arm will slay his foe and free his lady from her woe. Soon will his breast support thy head, and tears of joy thine eyes will shed. Soon by his mighty arm embraced the long-lost rapture wilt thou taste, and Rama, meet for highest bliss, will gain his guerdon in thy kiss. Canto 34. Ráma's tidings. Thus Ráma her story told, and Sítá's spirit was consoled, as when the first fresh rain is shed the parching earth is comforted. Then, filled with zeal for Sítá's sake, again in gentle tones she spake, and, skilled in arts that soothe and please, addressed the queen in words like these. Thy husband, lady, will I seek, say the fond words thy lips would speak, and then, unseen of any eye, back to thy side will swiftly fly. My airy flights are speedier far than Ru letter 1E0D at S, and the tempest are. Then Sítá spake, her former woe still left her accents faint and low. I know thy steps, which naught can stay, can urge through heaven and hell their way. Then if thy love and changeless will would serve the helpless captive still, go forth and learn each plot and guile planned by the Lord of Lanka's isle. With magic art like maddening wine, he cheats these weeping eyes of mine, torments me with his suit, nor spares reproof or flattery, threats or prayers. These guards surround me night and day. My heart is sad, my senses stray, and helpless in my woe I fear the tyrant Rav, a letter 1E47 even here. Then Ráma replied, I go to learn the purpose of thy foe, soon by thy side again to stand and tell thee what the king has planned. She sped, She heard with eager ears the tyrant speak his hopes and fears, where, gathered at their master's call, the nobles filled the council hall, then swiftly, to her promise true, back to the Asoka grove she flew. The lady on the grassy ground, longing for her return, she found, who with a gentle smile, to greet the envoy, led her to a seat. Through her worn frame a shiver ran as Sarama her tale began. There stood the royal mother. She besought her son to set thee free, and to her counsel, tears and prayers, the elder nobles added theirs. O be the Mathil queen restored with honor to her angry lord, let Janice Thon's unhappy fight be witness of the hero's might. Hanuman o'er the waters came, and looked upon the guarded dame. Let Lanka's chiefs who fought and fell the prowess of the leader tell. In vain they sued, in vain she wept, his purpose still unchanged he kept, as clings the miser to his gold, he would not loose thee from his hold. No, never till in death he lies, will Lanka's lord release his prize. Soon slain by Rama's arrows, all the giants with their king will fall, and Rama to his home will lead his black-eyed queen from bondage freed. An awful sound that moment rose from Lanka's fast-approaching foes, where drum and shell in mingled peal made earth in terror rock and reel. The hosts within the walls arrayed stood trembling, in their hearts dismayed, thought of the tempest soon to burst, and Lanka's lord their ruin cursed. Canto 35. Malyavan's speech. The fearful notes of drum and shell upon the ear of Rav, a letter 1E47 fell. One moment quailed his haughty look, one moment in his fear he shook, but soon recalling wanted pride, his counselors he sternly eyed, and with a voice that thundered through the council hall began anew. Lords, I have heard, your tongues have told, how Raghu's son is fierce and bold. To Lanka's shore has bridged his way, and hither leads his wild array. I know your might, in battle tried, fighting and conquering by my side. Why now, when such a foe is near, looks eye to eye in silent fear? He ceased, his mother's sire well known for wisdom in the council shown, Malyavan, sage and faithful guide. Thus to the monarch's speech replied. Long reigns the king in safe repose, unmoved by fear of vanquished foes, whose feet by saving knowledge led in justice path delight to tread, who knows to sheath the sword or wield, to order peace, to strike or yield, prefers, when foes are stronger, peace, and bids a doubtful conflict cease. Now king, the choice before thee lies, make peace with Rama and be wise. This day the captive queen restore, who brings the foe to Lanka's shore. The sire by whom the worlds are swayed of yore, the gods and demons made. With these injustice sided, those fair justice for her champions chose. Still justice dwells with gods above injustice, fiends and giants love. Thou, through the worlds that fear thee, long haste scorn the right and love the wrong, and justice, with thy foes allied, gives might resistless to their side. Thou, guided by thy wicked will, haste found delight in deeds of ill, and sages in their holy rest have trembled, by thy power oppressed. But they, who check each vain desire, are clothed with might which burns like fire. In them the power and glory live which zeal and saintly fervor give. Their constant task, their sole delight is worship and each holy rite, to chant aloud the Veda hymn, nor let the sacred fires grow dim. Now through the air like thunder, ring the echoes of the chants they sing. The vapors of their incense rise and veil with cloudy pall the skies, and Raksha's might grows weak and faint killed by the power of sage and saint. By Brahma's boon thy life was screened from god, Gandharva, Yaksha, fiend, but Vanners, men and bears, arrayed against thee now, thy shores invade. Red meteors, heralds of despair flash frequent through the lurid air, foretelling to my troubled mind the ruin of the Raksha's kind. With awful thundering overhead clouds, black as night, are densely spread, and oozing from the gloomy pall great drops of blood on Lanka fall. Dogs roam through house and shrine to steal the sacred oil and curd and meal, cats pair with tigers, hounds with swine, and asses, foals are born of kine. In these and countless signs, I trace the ruin of the giant race. 'Tis Vibhishan letter 1E47 US self who comes to storm thy city, clothed in Rama's form, for, well I ween, no mortal hand the ocean with a bridge has spanned. O giant king, the dame release, and sue to Raghu's son for peace. Canto 36. Ravan's reply. But Rav a letter 1E47's breast with fury swelled, and thus he spake by death impelled, while, under brows in anger bent, fierce glances from his eyes were sent. The bitter words which thou, misled by friendly thought, hast fondly said, which praise the foe and counsel fear, unheeded fall upon mine ear. How canst thou deem a mighty foe this Rama who, in stress of woe, seeks, banished as his sire decreed, assistance from the Vánar breed? Am I so feeble in thine eyes, though feared by dwellers of the skies, whose might in many a battle shown the glorious race of giants own? Shall I for fear of him restore the lady whom I hither bore, exceeding fair like beauty's queen, 944, without her well-loved lotus seen? Around the chief let LKSHM a letter 1E47 stand, Sugriva and each Vánar band. Soon, Malyavan, thine eyes will see this boasted Rama slain by me. I in the brunt of war defy the mightiest warriors of the sky, and if I stoop to combat men, shall I be weak and tremble then? This mangled trunk the foe may rend, but Rav a letter 1E47 ne'er can yield or bend, and be it vice or virtue, I this nature never will belie. What marvel if he bridge the sea? Why should this deed disquiet thee? This, only this, I surely know, back with his life he shall not go. Thus in loud tones the king exclaimed, and mute stood Malyavan ashamed. His reverend head he humbly bent, and slowly to his mansion went. But Rav a letter 1E47 stayed, and deep in care held counsel with his nobles there, all entrance to secure and close, and guard the city from their foes. He bade the chief Prahesta wait, commander at the eastern gate, to fierce Mahadar, strong and brave, to keep the southern gate, he gave, where Mahaparsvas might should aid the chieftain with his hosts arrayed. To guard the west, no chief more fit, he placed the warrior Indrajit, his son, the giant's joy and boast, surrounded by a Rakshas host, and mighty Sar a letter 1E47 hastened forth with Sukha to protect the north. 945, I will myself, the monarch cried, be present on the northern side. These orders for the walls defense the tyrant gave, then parted thence, and by the hope of victory fired, to chambers far within, retired. Canto 37. Preparations. Lords of the legions of the wood, the chieftains with Vibhishan a letter 1E47 stood, and, strangers in the foeman's land, their hopes and fears in council scanned. See where Lanka's towers ascend, which Rav a letter 1E47's power and might defend, which gods, Gandharvas, fiends would fail to conquer, if they durst assail. How shall our legions pass within, the city of the foe to win, with massive walls and portals barred, which Rav a letter 1E47 keeps with surest guard? With anxious looks the walls they eyed, and sage Vibhish a letter 1E47 thus replied. These lords of mine 946 can answer. They within the walls have found their way, the foeman's plan and order learned, and hither to my side returned. Now, Rama, let my tongue declare how Rav a letter 1E47's hosts are stationed there. Prahesta heads, in warlike state, his legions at the eastern gate. To guard the southern portal stands Mahadar, girt by Rakshas bands, where mighty Mahaparsva, sent by Rav a letter 1E47's hest, his aid has lent. Guard of the gate that fronts the west is valiant Indrajit, the best of warriors, Rav a letter 1E47's joy and pride. And by the youthful chieftain's side are giants, armed for fierce attacks with sword and mace and battle-axe. North, where approach is dreaded most, the king, encompassed with a host of giants trained in war, whose hands wield maces, swords, and lances, stands. All these are chiefs whom Rav a letter 1E47 chose as mightiest to resist his foes, and each a countless army, 947, leads with elephants and cars and steeds. Then Rama, while his spirit burned for battle, words like these returned. The eastern gate be Neela's care opponent of Prahesta there. The southern gate, with troops arrayed let Angad Bali's son invade. The gate that fronts the falling sun shall be by brave Hanuman won. Soon through its portals shall he lead his myriads of Vánar breed. The gate that fronts the north shall be assailed by LKSHM a letter 1E47, and by me, for I myself have sworn to kill the tyrant who delights in ill. Armed with the boon which Brahma gave, the gods of heaven he loves to brave, and through the trembling worlds he flies, oppressor of the just and wise. Thou, Jambavan, and thou, O king of Vánars, all your bravest bring, and with your hosts in dense array straight to the center force your way. But let no Vánar in the storm disguise him in a human form, ye chiefs who change your shapes at will, retain your Vánar semblance still. Thus, when we battle with the foe, both men and Vánars will ye know in human form will seven appear, myself, my brother Lakshman, a letter 1E47 here, Vibhish, a letter 1E47, and the four he led from Lanka's city when he fled. Thus Raghu's son the chiefs addressed. Then, gazing on Suvela's crest, transported by the lovely sight, he longed to climb the mountain height. Canto 38. The Ascent of Suvela. Come let us scale, the hero cried, this hill with various metals dyed. This night upon the breezy crest Sugrava, Lakshman, a letter 1E47. I will rest with sage Vibhish, a letter 1E47, faithful friend, his counsel and his lore to lend. From those tall peaks each eager eye the foeman city shall espy, who from the wood my darling stole, and brought long anguish on my soul. Thus spake the Lord of men, and bent his footsteps to the steep ascent. And Lakshman, a letter 1E47, true in weal and woe, next followed with his shafts and bow. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 followed, next in place, the sovereign of the Vánar race, and hundreds of the forest kind thronged with impetuous feet behind. The chiefs in woods and mountains bred fast followed to Suvela's head, and gazed on Lanka bright and fair as some gay city in the air. On glittering gates, on ramparts raised by giant hands, the chieftains gazed. They saw the mighty hosts that, skilled in arts of war, the city filled, and ramparts with new ramparts lined, the swarthy hosts that stood behind. With spirits burning for the fight, they saw the giants from the height, and from 100 throats rang out defiance and the battle shout. Then sank the sun with dying flame, and soft the shades of twilight came, and the full moon's delicious light was shed upon the tranquil night. Canto 39. Lanka. They slept secure. The sun arose and called the chieftains from repose. Before the wondering Vánars, gay with grove and garden, Lanka lay, where golden buds the champak showed, and bright with bloom Asoka glowed, and palm and sal and many a tree with leaf and flower were fair to see. They looked on wood and lawn and glade, on emerald grass and dusky shade, where creepers filled the air with scent, and luscious fruit the branches bent, where bees inebriate love to throng, and each sweet bird was loud in song. The wondering Vánars passed the bound that circled that enchanting ground, and as they came a sweet breeze through the odorous alleys softly blew. Some Vánars at their king's behest, onward to bannered Lanka pressed, while, startled by the stranger's tread, the birds and deer before them fled. Earth trembled at each step they took, and Lanka at their shouting shook. Bright rose before their wondering eyes Triku acute letter 1E60, a S-peak that kissed the skies, and, clothed with flowers of every hue afar its golden radiance through. Most fair to see the mountain's head, 100 leagues in length was spread. There Rav, a letter 1E47 S-town, securely placed, the summit of Triku acute letter 1E60 agraced. O'er leagues of land she stretched in pride, 100 long and 20 wide. They saw a lofty wall enfold the city, built of blocks of gold. They saw the beams of morning fall on dome and fane within the wall, bright with the shine that mansion gives where Vish letter 1E47 in his glory lives. White-crested like the Lord of Snows before them, Rav, a letter 1E47 S palace rose. High on 1,000 pillars raised with gold and precious stone it blazed, guarded by giant warders, crown and ornament of Lanka's town. Canto 40. Rávan attacked. Still stood the son of Raghu, where Suvela's peak rose high in air, and with Sugrava turned his eye to scan each quarter of the sky. There on Triku acute letter 1E60, a nobly planned and built by Visvakarma's hand, he saw the lovely Lanka, dressed in all her varied beauty, rest. High on a tower above the gate, the tyrant stood in kingly state. The royal canopy displayed above him lent its grateful shade, and servants, from the giant band, his cheek with jeweled charis fanned. Red sandal o'er his breast was spread, his ornaments and robe were red. Thus shows a cloud of darksome hue with golden sunbeams flashing through. While Rama and the chiefs intent upon the king their glances bent, up sprang Sugriva from the ground and reached the turret at a bound. Unterrified the Vánar stood, and wroth with wondrous hardihood, the king in bitter words addressed, and thus his scorn and hate expressed. King of the giant race, in me the friend and slave of Rama see. Lord of the world, he gives me power to smite thee in thy fenced tower. While through the air his challenge rang, at Rav, a letter 1E47's face the Vánar sprang. Snatched from his head the kingly crown, and dashed it in his fury down. Straight at his foe the giant flew, his mighty arms about him threw. With strength resistless, swung him round, and dashed him panting to the ground. Unharmed amid the storm of blows swift, to his feet Sugriva rose. Again in furious fight they met, with streams of blood their limbs were wet, each grasping his opponent's waist. Thus with their branches interlaced, which, crimson with the flowers of spring, from side to side the breezes swing, in furious wrestle you may see the kinsuck and the seemel tree. 948. They fought with fists and hands, alike prepared to parry and to strike. Long time the doubtful combat, waged with matchless strength and fury, raged. Each fiercely struck, each guarded well, till, closing from the tower they fell, and, grasping each the other's throat, lay for an instant in the moat. They rose, and each in fiercer mood the sanguinary strife renewed. Well matched in size and strength, and skill they fought the dubious battle still. While sweat and blood their limbs bedewed they met, retreated, and pursued. Each stratagem and art they tried, stood front to front and swerved aside. His hand awhile the giant stayed, and called his magic to his aid. But brave Sugriva, swift to know the guileful purpose of the foe, gained with light leap the upper air, and breath and strength and spirit there. Then, joyous as for victory won, returned to Raghu's royal son. Canto 41. Rama's envoy. When Rama saw each bloody trace on King Sugriva's limbs and face, he cried, while, sorrowing at the view, his arms about his friend he threw. Too venturous chieftain, kings like us bring not their lives in peril thus, nor, save when counsel shows the need, attempt so bold, so rash a deed. Remember, Vibhish, a letter 1E47 all have sorrowed fearing for thy fall. Oh, do not, for us all I speak, these desperate adventures seek. I could not, cried Sugriva, brook upon the giant king to look, nor challenge to the deadly strife the fiend who robbed thee of thy wife. Now LAKSHM, a letter 1E47, Marshal, Rama cried, our legions where the woods are wide, and stand we ready to oppose the fury of our giant foes. This day our armies shall ascend the walls which Rav, a letter 1E47's powers defend, and floods of Raksha's blood shall stain the streets encumbered with the slain. Down from the peak he came, and viewed the Vánars, ordered multitude. Each captain there for battle burned, each fiery eye to Lanka turned. On, where the royal brothers led to Lanka's walls, the legions sped. The northern gate, where giant foes swarmed round their monarch, Rama chose where he in person might direct the battle, and his troops protect. What arm but his the post might keep where, strong as he who sways the deep. 949, mid-thousands armed with bow and mace, stood Rav, a letter 1E47 mightiest of his race. The eastern gate was Neela's post, where marshalled stood his Vánar host, and Mainda with his troops arrayed, and Dwivid stood to lend him aid. The southern gate was Angad's care, who ranged his bold battalions there. Hanuman by the port that faced the setting sun his legions placed, and King Sugriva held the wood east of the gate, where Rav, a letter 1E47 stood. On every side the myriads met, and Lanka's walls of close beset that scarce the roving gale could win a passage to the hosts within. Loud as the angry oceans roar when wild waves lash the rocky shore, 10,000 throats upsent a shout that tore the firmament. And Lanka with each grove and brook and tower and wall and rampart shook. The giants heard and were appalled. Then Raghu's son to Angad called, and led by kingly duty, 950 gave this order merciful as brave. Go Angad, Rav, a letter 1E47's presence seek, and thus my words of warning speak. How art thou changed and fallen now, O monarch of the giants, thou whose impious fury would not spare saint, nymph, or spirit of the air, whose foot in haughty triumph trod on Yaksha, king and serpent god. How art thou fallen from thy pride which Brahma's favor fortified? With myriads at thy Lanka's gate I stand my righteous ire to sate, and punish thee with sword and flame, the tyrant fiend who stole my dame. Now show the might, employ the guile, O monarch of the giants' isle, which stole a helpless dame away. Call up thy power and strength today. Once more I warn thee, Raksha's king, this hour the Maithil lady bring, and yielding while there yet is time, seek, suppliant, pardon for the crime. Or I will leave beneath the sun no living Rakshas, no, not one. In vain from battle wilt thou fly, or borne on pinions seek the sky. The hand of Rama shall not spare, his fiery shaft shall smite thee there. He ceased, and Angad bowed his head, thence like embodied flame he sped, and lighted from his airy road within the Rakshas' king's abode. There sate, the center of a ring of counselors, the giant king. Swift through the circle Angad pressed, and spoke with fury in his breast. Sent by the lord of Kosel's land, his envoy here, O king, I stand, Angad the son of Bali. Fame has haply taught thine ears my name. Thus in the words of Rama I am come to warn thee or defy. Come forth, and fighting in the van display the spirit of a man. This arm shall slay thee, tyrant. All thy nobles, kith and kin shall fall, and earth and heaven, from terror freed, shall joy to see the oppressor bleed. Vibhish, a letter 147. When his foe is slain, anointed king and peace shall reign. Once more I counsel thee, repent, avoid the mortal punishment, with honor do the dame restore, and pardon for thy sin implore. Loud rose the king's infuriate cry, seize the Vánar, let him die. 4 of his band their lord obeyed, and eager hands on Angad laid. He purposing his strength to show, gave no resistance to the foe, but swiftly round his captors cast his mighty arms, and held them fast. Fierce shout and cry around him rang, light to the palace roof he sprang, there his detaining arms unwound, and hurled the giants to the ground. Then, smiting with a fearful stroke, a turret from the roof he broke, as when the fiery levin sent by Indra from the clouds has rent the proud peak of the Lord of Snow, and flung the stony mass below. Again with loud terrific cry, he sprang exulting to the sky, and, joyous for his errand done, stood by the side of Raghu's son. Canto 42. The sally. Still was the cry, the Vánar foes around the leaguered city close. King Rav, a letter 147 from the terrace gazed and saw, with eyes where fury blazed, the Vánar host in serried ranks pressed to the moat and lined the banks, and first in splendor and in place, the lion lord of Raghu's race. And Rama looked on Lanka where gay flags were streaming to the air, and while keen sorrow pierced him through, his loving thoughts to Sítá flew. There in deep affliction lies my darling with the fawn-like eyes. There on the cold bare ground she keeps sad vigil and for Rama weeps. Mad with the thought, charge, he cried. Let earth with Raksha's blood be dyed. Responsive to his call rang out a loud, a universal shout, as myriads filled the moat with stone trees, rocks, and mountains overthrown, and charging at their leader's call pressed forward furious to the wall. Some in their headlong ardor scaled the rampart's height, the guard assailed, and many a ponderous fragment rent from portal, tower, and battlement. Huge gates adorned with burnished gold were loosed and lifted from their hold, and post and pillar, with a sound like thunder, fell upon the ground. At every portal, east and west and north and south, the chieftains pressed each in his post appointed led his myriads in the forest bred. Charge, let the gates be opened wide. Charge, my giants, Rav, a letter 147 cried. They heard his voice, and loud and long rang the wild clamor of the throng, and shell and drum their notes upsent, and every martial instrument. Forth, at the bidding of their lord, from every gate the giants poured, as, when the waters rise and swell, huge waves preceding waves impel. Again from every Vánar throat a scream of fierce defiance smote the welkin. Earth and sea and sky re-echoed with the awful cry. The roar of elephants, the neigh of horses eager for the fray. The frequent clash of warriors' steel, the rattling of the chariot wheel. Fierce was the deadly fight. Opposed in terrible array they closed, as when the gods of heaven enraged with rebel fiends wild battle waged. Axe, spear, and mace were wielded well, at every blow a Vánar fell. But shivered rock and brandished tree brought many a giant on his knee, to perish in his turn, beneath the deadly wounds of nails and teeth. Canto 43. The single combats. Brave chiefs of each opposing side their strength, in single combat tried. Fierce indrajit, the fight began with Anged in the battle's van. Sampati, strongest of his race, stood with Prajangha face to face. Hanuman, Jambumali met in mortal opposition set. Vibhish a letter 1E47, brother of the Lord of Lanka, raised his threatening sword and singled out, with eyes aglow with wrath, Satrugna for his foe. The mighty Gajatapan sought, and Nila with Nikumbha fought. Sugriva, Vánar king, defied fierce Pragha's long in battle tried, and Lakshman, a letter 1E47 fearless in the fight encountered Virupaksha's might. To meet the royal Rama came wild Agniktu fierce as flame. Mitragana, he who loved to strike his foeman and his friend alike, with Razmaktu, known and feared where his ponderous flag was reared, and Yajnakopa whose delight was ruin of the sacred right. These met and fought, with thousands more, and trampled earth was red with gore. Swift as the bolt which Indra sends when fire from heaven, the mountain wrens smote Indrajit, with furious blows on Anged queller of his foes. But Anged from his foeman tore the murderous mace the warrior bore, and low in dust his coursers rolled, his driver, and his car of gold. Struck by the shafts Prajangha sped, the Vánar chief Sampati bled, but heedless of his gashes he crushed down the giant with a tree. Then car-born Jambumali smote Hanuman on the chest and throat, but at the car the Vánar rushed, and chariot, steeds, and rider crushed. Sugriva whirled a huge tree round, and struck fierce Praghas to the ground. One arrow shot from Lakshman, a letter 1E47s, bow laid mighty Virupaksha low. His giant foes round Rama pressed and shot their shafts at head and breast, but when the iron shower was spent, 4 arrows from his bow he sent, and every missile, deftly sped, cleft from the trunk a giant head. 951. Canto 44. The night. The Lord of Light had sunk and set. Night came. The foemen struggled yet, and fiercer for the gloom of night grew the wild fury of the fight. Scarce could each warrior's eager eye the foeman from the friend descry. Rakshas or Vánar? Say, cried each, and foe knew foeman by his speech. Why wilt thou fly? O warrior, stay, turn on the foe and rend and slay. Such were the cries, such words of fear smote through the gloom each listening ear. Each swarthy rover of the night, whose golden armor flashed with light, showed like a towering hill embraced by burning woods about his waist. The giants at the Vánars flew, and ravening ate the foes they slew, with mortal bite like serpent's fang. The Vánars at the giants sprang, and car and steeds, and they who bore the pennons fell bedewed with gore. No serried band, no firm array the fury of their charge could stay. Down went the horse and rider, down went giant lords of high renown. Though midnight's shade was dense and dark, with skill that swerved not from the mark their bows the sons of Raghu drew, and each keen shaft a chieftain slew. Uprose the blinding dust from meads plowed by the cars and trampling steeds, and where the warriors fell the flood was dark and terrible with blood. 6 giants, 952, singled Rama out, and charged him with a furious shout loud as the roaring of the sea when every wind is raging free. 6 times he shot, 6 heads were cleft, 6 giants dead on earth were left. Nor ceased he yet. His bow he strained, and from the sounding weapon rained a storm of shafts whose fiery glare filled all the region of the air, and chieftains dropped before his aim like moths that perish in the flame. Earth glistened where the arrows fell, as shines in autumn nights a dell which fireflies, flashing through the gloom, with momentary light illume. But in Indrajit, when Bali's son, 953, the victory o'er the foe had won, saw with a fury-kindled eye his mangled steeds and driver die, then, lost in air, he fled the fight, and vanished from the victor's sight. The gods and saints glad voices raised, and Anged for his virtue praised, and Raghu's sons bestowed the meed of honor due to valorous deed. Compelled his shattered car to quit, rage filled the soul of Indrajit, who brooked not, strong by Brahma's grace defeat from one of Vánar race. In magic mist, concealed from view his bow, the treacherous warrior drew, and Raghu's sons were first to feel the tempest of his winged steel. Then, when his arrows failed to kill the princes who defied him still, he bound them with the serpent noose. 954, the magic bond which none might loose. Canto 45. Indrajit's victory. Brave Rama, burning still to know the station of his artful foe, gave to 10 chieftains, mid the best of all the host, his high behest. Swift rose in air the Vánar band, each region of the sky they scanned, but Rav a letter 1E47's son by magic skill checked them with arrows swifter still, when streams of blood from chest and side the dauntless Vánars limbs had died. The giant in his misty shroud showed like the sun obscured by cloud. Like serpents hissing through the air, his arrows smote the princely pair, and from their limbs at every rent a stream of rushing blood was sent. Like kinsuck trees they stood, that show in spring their blossoms, crimson glow. Then Indrajit with fury eyed Ikshvaku's royal sons, and cried, "Not mighty Indra can assail or see me when I choose to veil my form in battle, and can ye, children of earth, contend with me? The arrowy noose this hand has shot has bound you with a hopeless knot, and, slaughtered by my shafts and bow, to Yama's hall this hour ye go." He spoke and shouted. Then anew the arrows from his bowstring flew, and pierced, well aimed with perfect art, each limb and joint and vital part. Transfixed with shafts in every limb, their strength relaxed, their eyes grew dim. As 2 tall standards side by side, with each sustaining rope untied, fall leveled by the howling blast, so earth's majestic lords at last beneath the arrowy tempest reeled, and prostrate pressed the battlefield. Canto 46. Indrajit's triumph. The Vánar chiefs whose piercing eyes scanned eagerly the earth and skies, saw the brave brothers wounded sore, transfixed with darts and stained with gore. The monarch of the Vánar race, with wise Vibhishan a letter 1E47, reached the place, Angad and Nila came behind, and others of the forest kind, and standing with Hanuman there lamented for the fallen pair. Their melancholy eyes they raised, in fruitless search a while they gazed. But magic arts Vibhish a letter 1E47 knew, not hidden from his keener view, though veiled by magic from the rest. The son of Rav a letter 1E47 stood confessed. Fierce Indrajit with savage pride the fallen sons of Raghu eyed, and every giant heart was proud, as thus the warrior cried aloud. Slain by mine arrows Rama lies, and closed in death are Lakshm a letter 1E47's eyes. Dead are the mighty princes who acute sh a letter 1E47, and Kara smote and slew. The gods and fiends may toil in vain to free them from the binding chain. The haughty chief, my father's dread, who drove him sleepless from his bed, while Lanka, troubled like a brook in rain time, heard his name and shook. He whose fierce hate our lives pursued lies helpless by my shafts subdued. Now fruitless is each wondrous deed wrought by the race the forests breed, and fruitless every toil at last like cloudlets when the rains are past. Then rose the shout of giants loud as thunder from a bursting cloud, when, deeming Rama dead, they raised their voices and the conqueror praised. Still motionless as lie the slain, the brothers pressed the bloody plain, no sigh they drew, no breath they heaved, and lay as though of life bereaved. Proud of the deed his art had done, to Lanka's town went Rav a letter 1E47's son, where, as he passed, all fear was stilled, and every heart with triumph filled. Sugriva trembled as he viewed each fallen prince with blood bedewed, and in his eyes, which overflowed with tears, the flame of anger glowed. "Calm," cried Vibhish a letter 1E47, "calm thy fears, and stay the torrent of thy tears. Still must the chance of battle change, and victory still delight to range. Our cause again will she befriend and bring us triumph in the end. This is not death. Each prince will break the spell that holds him, and awake, nor long shall numbing magic bind the mighty arm, the lofty mind." He ceased, his finger bathed in dew across Sugriva's eyes he drew, from dulling mist his vision freed, and spoke these words to suit the need. "No time is this for fear. Away with fainting heart and weak delay. Now, e'en the tear which sorrow wrings from loving eyes destruction brings. Up, on to battle at the head of those brave troops which Rama led. Or guardian by his side remain, till sense and strength the prince regain. Soon shall the trance-bound pair revive, and from our hearts all sorrow drive. Though prostrate on the earth he lie, deem not that Rama's death is nigh. Deem not that Lakshmi will forget or leave her darling champion yet. Rest here and be thy heart consoled, ponder my words, be firm and bold. I foremost in the battlefield, will rally all who faint or yield. Their staring eyes betray their fear, they whisper each another's ear. They, when they hear my cheering cry, and see the friend of Rama nigh, will cast their gloom and fears away like faded wreaths of yesterday. Thus calmed he King Sugriva's dread, then gave new heart to those who fled. Fierce Indrajit, his soul on fire with pride of conquest, sought his sire, raised reverent hands and told him all, the battle and the prince's fall. Rejoicing at his foes, defeat upsprang the monarch from his seat, girt by his giant courtiers. Round his warrior son his arms he wound, close kisses on his head applied, and heard again how Rama died. Canto 47. Sítá. Still on the ground where Rama slept their faithful watch, the Vánars kept. Their Angad stood o'erwhelmed with grief, and many a lord and warrior chief and, ranged in densest mass around, their tree-armed legions held the ground. Far-ranged each Vánar's eager eye now swept the land, now sought the sky all fearing, if a leaf was stirred, a Rakshas in the sound they heard. The lord of Lanka in his hall, rejoicing at his foeman's fall, commanded, and the warders came who ever watched the Maithil dame. Go, cried the Rakshas king, relate to Janak's child her husband's fate. Low on the earth her Rama lies, and dark in death are LAKSHM, a letter 1E47 SIs. Bring forth my car, and let her ride to view the chieftains side by side. The lord to whom her fancy turned for whose dear sake my love she spurned, lies smitten, as he fiercely led the battle, with his brother dead. Lead forth the royal lady, go her husband's lifeless body show. Then from all doubt and terror, free, her softening heart will turn to me. They heard his speech. The car was brought, that shady grove the warders sought where, mourning Rama night and day, the melancholy lady lay. They placed her in the car, and through the yielding air they swiftly flew. The lady looked upon the plain, looked on the heaps of Vánar slain, saw where, triumphant in the fight, thronged the fierce rovers of the night, and Vánar chieftains, mournful-eyed, watched by the fallen brother's side. There stretched upon his gory bed each brother lay as lie the dead, with shattered mail and splintered bow pierced by the arrows of the foe. When on the pair her eyes she bent, burst from her lips a wild lament her eyes o'erflowed, she groaned and sighed, and thus in trembling accents cried. Canto 48. Sita's Lament. False are they all, proved false today, the prophets of my fortune, they who in the tranquil time of old a blessed life for me foretold, predicting I should never know a childless dames, a widow's woe, false are they all, their words are vain, for thou, my lord and life, art slain. False was the priest, and vain his lore who blessed me in those days of yore, by Rama's side in bliss to reign, for thou, my lord and life, art slain. They hailed me happy from my birth, proud empress of the Lord of earth. They bless me, but the thought is pain, for thou, my lord and life, art slain. Ah, fruitless hope! Each glorious sign that stamps the future queen is mine, with no ill-omened mark to show a widow's crushing hour of woe. They say my hair is black and fine, they praise my brow's continuous line, my even teeth divided well, my bosom for its graceful swell. They praise my feet and fingers oft, they say my skin is smooth and soft, and call me happy to possess the 12 fair marks that bring success. 955, but ah, what profit shall I gain? Thou, O my lord in life, art slain. The flattering seer in former days my gentle girlish smile would praise, and swear that holy water shed by Brahmin hands upon my head should make me queen, a monarch's bride. How is the promise verified? Matchless in might, the brothers slew in Janisthan the giant crew, and forced the indomitable sea to let them pass to rescue me. Theirs was the fiery weapon hurled by him who rules the watery world. 956, theirs the dire shaft by Indra sped, theirs was the mystic Brahma's head. 957, in vain they fought, the bold and brave, a coward's hand their death wounds gave. By secret shafts and magic spell the brothers, peers of Indra, fell. That foe, if seen by Rama's eye one moment, had not lived to fly. Though swift as thought, his utmost speed had failed him in the hour of need. No might, no tear, no prayer may stay fate's dark, inevitable day. Nor could their matchless valor shield these heroes on the battlefield. I sorrow for the noble dead, I mourn my hopes forever fled, but chief my weeping eyes o'erflow for Queen Kausalia's hopeless woe. The widowed queen is counting now each hour prescribed by Rama's vow, and lives because she longs to see once more her princely sons and me. Then Trij a letter 1E60 ah, 958 of gentler mold though Raksha's born, her grief consoled. Dear queen, thy causeless woe dispel, thy husband lives and all is well. Look round, in every Vánar face the light of joyful hope I trace. Not thus, believe me, shine the eyes of warriors when their leader dies. An army, when the chief is dead, flies from the field dispirited. Here, undisturbed in firm array, the Vánars by the brothers stay. Love prompts my speech, no longer grieve, ponder my counsel and believe. These lips of mine from earliest youth have spoken, and shall speak the truth. Deep in my heart, thy gentle grace and patient virtues hold their place. Turn, lady, turn once more than I, though pierced with shafts the heroes lie, on brows and cheeks with blood drops wet the light of beauty lingers yet. Such beauty ne'er is found in death, but vanishes with parting breath. Oh, trust the hope these tokens give, the heroes are not dead, but live. Then Sítá joined her hands and sighed, oh, may thy words be verified. The car was turned, which fleet as thought the mourning queen to Lanka brought. They led her to the garden, where again she yielded to despair, lamenting for the chiefs who bled on earth's cold bosom with the dead. Canto 49. Rama's Lament. Ranged round the spot where Rama fell each Vánar chief stood sentinel. At length the mighty hero broke the trance that held him, and awoke. He saw his senseless brother, dyed with blood from head to foot, and cried, what have I now to do with life or rescue of my prisoned wife, when thus before my weeping eyes, slain in the fight, my brother lies? A queen like Sítá I may find among the best of womankind, but never such a brother, tried in war, my guardian, friend, and guide. If he be dead, the brave and true, I will not live but perish too. How, reft of a kshm a letter 1E47, shall I meet my mother, and Kaikeyí greet? My brother's eager question brook, and fond Sumitra's longing look. What shall I say, o'erwhelmed with shame, to cheer the miserable dame? How, when she hears her son is dead, will her sad heart be comforted? Ah me, for longer life unfit this mortal body will I quit, for a kshm a letter 1E47 slaughtered for my sake, from sleep of death will never wake. Ah, when I sank oppressed with care, thy gentle voice could soothe despair. And art thou, O my brother, killed? Is that dear voice forever stilled? Cold are those lips, my brother, whence came never word to breed offense. Ah, stretched upon the gory plain, my brother lies untimely slain. Numbed is the mighty arm that slew the leaders of the giant crew. Transfixed with shafts, with bloodstreams red, thou least on thy lowly bed. So sinks to rest, his journey done, mid-arrowy raise the crimson sun. Thou, when from home and sire I fled, the wood's wild ways with me wouldst tread, now close to thine my steps shall be, for I in death will follow thee. Vibhish a letter 1E47 now will curse my name, and Rama as a braggart blame, who promised, but his word is vain, that he in Lanka's isle should reign. Return, Sugriva. Reft of me lead back thy Vánars o'er the sea, nor hope to battle face to face with him who rules the giant race. Well have ye done and nobly fought, and death in desperate combat sought. All that heroic might can do, brave Vánars, has been done by you. My faithful friends I now dismiss, return, my last farewell is this. Bedewed with tears was every cheek, as thus the Vánars heard him speak. Vibhish, a letter 1E47 on the field had stayed the Vánar hosts, who fled dismayed. Now lifting up his mace on high, with martial step the chief drew nigh. The hosts who watched by Rama's side beheld his shape, and giant stride. Tis Rav, a letter 1E47's son, they thought, and all in flight their safety sought. Canto 50. The broken spell. Sugriva viewed the flying crowd, and And thus to Anged cried aloud, "Why run the trembling hosts, as flee storm-scattered barks across the sea?" "Dost thou not mark," the chief replied, "transfixed with shafts, with bloodstreams dyed, with arrowy toils about them wound, the sons of Raghu on the ground?" That moment brought Vibhish, a letter 1E47 near. Sugriva knew the cause of fear, and ordered Jambavan, who led the bears, to check the hosts that fled. The king of bears his hest obeyed, the Vánars' headlong flight was stayed. A little while Vibhish, a letter 1E47 eyed, the brothers fallen side by side. His giant fingers wet with dew across the hero's eyes, he drew, still on the pair his sad look bent, and spoke these words in wild lament. Ah, for the mighty chiefs brought low by coward hand and stealthy blow. Brave pair who loved the open fight, slain by that rover of the night. Dishonest is the victory won by Indrajit my brother's son. I on their might for aid relied, and in my cause they fought and died. Lost is the hope that soothed each pain. I live, but live no more to reign while Lanka's lord, untouched by ill, exults in safe defiance still. Not thus, Sugriva said, repine, for Lanka's isle shall still be thine. Nor let the tyrant and his son exult before the fight be done. These royal chiefs, though now dismayed, freed from the spell by Gru letter 1E0D's aid, triumphant, yet the foe shall meet and lay the robber at their feet. His hope the Vánar monarch told, and thus Vibhish, a letter 1E47's grief consoled. Then to Sushe letter 1E47 who at his side expectant stood, Sugriva cried, "When these regain their strength and sense, fly, bear them to Kishkindha hence. Here with my legions will I stay, the tyrant and his kinsmen slay, and, rescued from the giant king, the Maithil lady will I bring, like glory lost of old, restored by Sakra, heaven's almighty Lord." Sushe letter 1E47 made answer, "Hear me yet, when gods and fiends in battle met, so fiercely fought the demon crew, so wild a storm of arrows flew, that heavenly warriors faint with pain, sank smitten by the ceaseless rain. V letter 1E5b IHSP a TI, 959, with herb and spell, cured the sore wounds of those who fell. And skilled in arts that heal and save, new life and sense and vigor gave. Far, on the milky ocean's shore, still grow those herbs in boundless store. Let swiftest Vánars thither speed, and bring them for our utmost need. Those herbs that on the mountains spring let Panas and Sampati bring, for well the wondrous leaves they know, that heal each wound and life bestow. Beside that sea which, churned of yore, the Amrit on its surface bore, where the white billows lash the land, Chandra's fair height and DRO letter 1E47 a stand. Planted by gods each glittering steep, looks down upon the milky deep. Let fleet Hanuman bring us, thence those herbs of wondrous influence. Meanwhile the rushing wind grew loud, red lightnings flashed from banks of cloud. The mountains shook, the wild waves rose, and smitten with resistless blows unrooted fell each stately tree that fringed the margin of the sea. All life within the waters feared then, as the Vánars gazed, appeared King Gru letter 1E0D's self, a wondrous sight, disclosed in flames of fiery light. From his fierce eye, in sudden dread all serpents in a moment fled. And those transformed to shaft, that bound the princes vanished in the ground. On Raghu's sons his eyes he bent, and hailed the Lord's armipotent. Then o'er them stooped the feathered king, and touched their faces with his wing. His healing touch their pangs allayed, and closed each rent the shafts had made. Again their eyes were bright and bold, again the smooth skin shone like gold. Again within their shell enshrined came memory and each power of mind, and, from those numbing bonds released, their spirit, zeal, and strength increased. Firm on their feet they stood, and then thus Rama spake, the Lord of men. By thy dear grace in source need from deadly bonds, we both are freed. To these glad eyes is welcome now as Ajah, 960, or my sire art thou. Who art thou, mighty being? Say thus glorious in thy bright array. He ceased. The king of birds replied, while flashed his eye with joy and pride. In me, O Raghu's son, behold one who has loved thee from of old, Gru letter 1E0D, the Lord of all that fly, thy guardian and thy friend am I. Not all the gods in heaven could loose these numbing bonds, this serpent noose, where with fierce Rav, a letter 1E47's son, renowned for magic arts, your limbs had bound. Those arrows fixed in every limb were mighty snakes, transformed by him. Bloodthirsty race, they live beneath the earth, and slay with venomed teeth. On smite the lord of Lanka's isle, but guard you from the giants' guile who each dishonest art employ, and by deceit brave foes destroy. So shall the tyrant Rav a letter 1E47 bleed, and Sítá from his power be freed. Thus G a Ru letter 1E0D spake. Then, swift as thought, the region of the sky he sought, where in the distance like a blaze of fire he vanished from the gaze. Then the glad Vánar's joy rang out in many a wild tumultuous shout, and the loud roar of drum and shell startled each distant sentinel. Canto 51. Dumraksha's Sally. King Rav a letter 1E47, where he sat within, heard from his hall the deafening din, and with a spirit ill at ease addressed his lords in words like these. That warlike shout, those joyous cries, loud as the thunder of the skies, upsent from every Vánar throat, some new-born confidence denote. Hark, how the sea and trembling shore re-echo with the Vánar's roar. Though arrowy chains, securely twined, both Ráma and his brother bind, still must the fierce triumphant shout disturb my soul with rising doubt. Swift envoys to the army send, and learn what change these cries portend. Obedient, at their master's call, fleet giants clomb the circling wall. They saw the Vánars formed and led, they saw Sugrava at their head, the brothers from their bonds released, and hope grew faint and fear increased. Their faces pale with doubt and dread, back to the giant king they sped, and to his startled ear revealed the tidings of the battlefield. The flush of rage awhile gave place to chilling fear that changed his face. "What," cried the tyrant, "are my foes freed from the binding snakes that close with venomed clasp round head and limb, bright as the sun and fierce like him, the spell a god bestowed of yore, the spell that never failed before? If arts like these be useless, how shall giant strength avail us now? Go forth, dumb Raksha, good at need. The bravest of my warriors lead, force through the foe thy conquering way, and Ráma and the Vánars slay." Before his king with reverence due dumb Raksha bowed him, and withdrew. Around him at his summons came fierce legions led by chiefs of fame. Well armed with sword and spear and mace, they hurried to the gathering place, and rushed to battle, borne at speed by elephant and car and steed.